or something? Okay. Hello? Can you hear me up here? Yeah. All right. We all here? I would like to welcome everyone to the first Men's Club Man of the Year evening, which honors our good friend Neil Sam. This is a great event for Men's Club, which is proven to be a valuable asset to our synagogue. Men's Club develops programs and events for our center men, and it also raises funds to benefit the youth of our congregation. Now, the key importance is the programs for our center men. You have to understand that it's a wonderful social opportunity for us to get away from our center women. Now, you have to understand, take this for example, okay? Can everybody hear this?
Wow, you play good.
Hold on. Did I get it? This is awesome. This, just so that everybody understands, is not allowed in the house. This is not allowed in our garage. I have to keep this in the trunk of my car, all right? But when I come to Men's Club, I can bring this. I can play this. Everybody understands. This is important. I love Men's Club. This is very key.
It's true, he just flips it right out.
You're going to be punished. Tonight's Men's Club, obviously, don't touch my thing, obviously includes,
Said the queen, if I had them, I'd be king.
tonight, obviously, put it over here, trouble. The reason why we have women here tonight is very simple. Bonnie made us. She would not let us honor Neil without him. And you know the way it is, when you let one of them in, you might as well let them all in. So I'd like to welcome the women here tonight to a Men's Club function. Actually, it's my privilege to welcome the women for such a major event as honoring Neil. And so what we're going to do, because the women are here, we're going to dispense with the decadence, we're going to dispense with the debauchery, and we're going to have a fun, adults-only evening instead of the usual male-only evening that we have at a Men's Club function. But before we begin, what I'm going to do is I'll then introduce the roasters. Before we begin, I have something to tell the men. There was something this weekend that happened. It's very sad, and I hate to use this event to bring the bad news, but Coach Chuck Knoll, who I'm sure everyone remembers is the former head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he died this weekend. And I was very sorry to hear that. Rabbi Gaffney told me because he heard it in God's weekly radio address. And what the rabbi told me is that when Coach Knoll died, he went to heaven. And when he got to heaven, he walks in and God says, Coach, welcome. Here's your little cottage that we have for you. It was cute. It was tiny, but it was cute with a little pole outside with a little flag, a faded Pittsburgh Steelers flag. And Coach Knoll said, God, this is very nice, but he's walking up to the house and the little cottage, and he sees down the block this humongous mansion, this 3-story, 10,000 square foot, huge house that had black and teal sidewalk out front, a black and teal driveway, a huge flagpole with a in every window. It was awesome. And Coach Noel looks at me and says, God, my question is, I was coach of the world champion Pittsburgh Steelers. They won Super Bowls, division championships. I'm in the Hall of Fame. Why did you reserve this little cottage for me, but you reserved that mansion for Tom Coughlin, who's done nothing? And God chuckled and he said, Coach, that's not Tom Coughlin's house. That's my house. Anyway, we all know where God sits in all of these big major sports events. Right next to you, Neil, rooting for the Jaguars. Our first roaster for the evening is going to be a former president of the men's club. I would now welcome Ken Organis to come roast.
Hey, Neil. First of all, I want to say thanks for all these lovely vegetables up here. They're quite nice. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll excuse me for just one moment, I want to talk to Neil in his native tongue. Hey, yo, Neil, how's it going? Hey, it's going good. It's going all right, you know? He's going, hey, how's it hanging? Good, all right. Okay. Now, for those of you who don't understand New York, I congratulated him, and I asked him how long his commitment was. You know what? Neil, you may not know this, but you probably do. He's a very religious man. So that when Ira Brand approached him and said, Neil, would you like to be the men's club president? Neil quoted from the book of Job. And he said, why me, God? Why me, Lord? So, Ira's very religious too, and Ira also quoted from the book of Job, and he said, don't ask. I didn't know a lot. I know Neil now, and what a great guy he is, and what he's done for the men's club. But I didn't really know him growing up, so I had to go back to his old neighborhood, and I looked around his old neighborhood, and I finally found this guy. His name is Rodney. So I said, Rodney, yeah. So I said, Rodney, he goes, oh, the one O'Neill. Are you kidding me, the one O'Neill? I said, well, what was he like? What was he like when he was a kid? He was a very ugly kid, very ugly kid. He says, I'll tell you, he was so ugly. How ugly? He was so ugly when he was born, the doctor slapped his mother. That's how ugly he was. I'll tell you. He was so ugly. I'll tell you, he was so ugly. He was so ugly, his mother never nursed him. She said, let's just be friends. I'll tell you, very ugly. Very ugly. I'll tell you, there was no Yiddish word that could describe him. That's how ugly he was, this kid. But then he grew up, he became a teenager, and that wasn't so great either. I don't want to, I'm talking out of school. He had a very bad complexion, very bad complexion. One time he fell asleep in the library. When he woke up, a blind man was reading his face. Very bad, very bad. And, you see him now, he's a very slim guy. But when he was a kid, he was a very fat kid, very fat. When he had his shoes shined, he had to take the guy's word for it. Very fat. He got on a scale and a card came out and said, one at a time. Very fat kid. Very fat. So he tried running. He thought maybe that would help. He tried running. He ran 5 miles a day for a whole week. Then he cried because it was 35 miles from home. Hopefully it was rough. Very rough. And also you see his lovely family, Bonnie and Scott and Paulie and Lori. Lovely family. But there are others that you don't know about, You don't know about that. You don't know about the cousin that's half Jewish, half Japanese. Has grits at Benihana's. I'll tell you, this cousin is half Jewish, half Japanese. Every December 7th, he attacks Promont. He's going on right now. He's going on. And he's given a lot of cabbage to the center over the years. I'm telling you, But when he was a kid, he was very poor, very poor. His rich aunt died. In the will, he wound up owing her $20. Very poor, very poor. And then his his father, his father says, Neil, when you go to Florida's different. He says, you got to change your name when you go to Florida. So he says, Pop, he says, Shakespeare said, what's in a name? So his old man says, you're going to trust me or you're going to trust your boys or friends? I'll tell you. And then, it's not always easy. It's not always easy. One time, Paulie comes home from school crying. He learned a new saying, like father, like son. I'll tell you, he's a sweet guy now. He's a sweet guy. But he was a pretty sexy guy. I'll tell you, when he was young, he was a pretty sexy guy. He had some girlfriends before Barney. He had this one girlfriend, let me tell you, when they wanted a minion, they looked under her bed. Very bad. I dated her too. I gotta tell you, I'll tell you, Neil, he told me, he confided. He says, I was very scared the first time I had sex. I was very scared. I was all alone, And then his first girlfriend, I tell you, she was very fast, very fast. She wanted to have sex in the back of the car. And she wanted Neil to drive. Very fast. And she says, Neil, you're a terrible lover. You're a terrible lover. He says, how do you know? After just 2 minutes. I'll tell you this girl, she was very fast, very fast. She liked to talk during sex, One night she called Neil from the Hilton. I'll tell you, she was no prize package either. She was no prize package. He took her to the top of the Empire State Building and planes started attacking her. I'll tell you, no prize package. Somebody's like a skip here. I'm kidding a lot, but he's got a lovely family and such a lovely wife and Bonnie. She's a lovely wife. And Bonnie didn't want to marry Neil for his money, but how else was she going to get it? But I'll tell you, we all love Neil, and he's a great guy, and this has all been fun. You have a wonderful family. I just want to know one thing. If you just tell me one thing, I'll leave you alone, okay? How much did you have to pay to get this honor? Okay.
I talked to many of Neil's friends in order to get some stuff on Neil, and one recurring theme from everyone about Neil and Bonnie is that they are truly sexual animals. I mean, tonight, everybody's coming up to me and they want to tell me another sex story about Neil and Bonnie. So I called Bonnie up and I said, Bonnie, I want to hear a sex story from you. I want you to tell me. No, I did not. You already did. It was good. It was very good. Well, after great reluctance, Bonnie, she offered, she said, well, how about if I type you one like at the board meetings? I said, no. I want you to tell me a story about the sexual prowess, something really good. So Bonnie told me about the day a few years ago when she was home with the kids, and somebody came to the door. They were knocking on the door, and she came to the door. The kids were running all around, and it was a market researcher for the company that makes Vaseline. And they come and they say to Bonnie, they say, look, I'm a researcher for the company that makes Vaseline, and I would like to know if you use Vaseline. Now, Bonnie is so honest and so forthright. She said, sure, we use Vaseline for sexual intercourse. Almost a little proud. And the market researcher kind of blushed a little bit and said, most people, when I ask this, they say I use Vaseline for the bicycle chain or Vaseline for the gate post. But they don't come right out and say, I use Vaseline for sexual intercourse. Could you please, he was, steam was coming from his head a little bit. So he looks at Bonnie and says, could you please tell me how you use it for sexual intercourse? And Bonnie smiled and said, sure, we put it on the doorknob to keep the kids out. Anyway, next I'd like to call on our Executive Director, Bruce, for his comments. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm at a men's club function or the Jerry Springer show. I'll be brief because it's really hard to roast such a nice guy like Neil. I mean, Neil has always been there for the center when we've needed him. No matter what it takes, no matter what the cause, Neil, you've always been there. For example, when PTA needed a cross-dresser for one of its fundraisers, Neil was the first to volunteer. Neil, you look great in a bikini, but do us all a favor and shave your legs next time. Actually, Neil's brought a lot of innovation to our congregation, especially in his groundbreaking work with the Center's Men's Club. And tonight we want to set the record straight about Neil and the Men's Club, especially in some of the areas that have been somewhat controversial. For example, the infamous Men's Club fishing trip. Now, there's been a lot of cajoling over the years about the fact that they don't catch many fish on this trip, but there's really a very plausible explanation that relates to Neil's keen sense of economics. You see, on the very first Men's Club fishing trip, they laid out all the money for a nice boat, all the tackle, bait, lunches, and so forth, and they really went first class. And after a whole day on the ocean, they caught one stinking fish. Well, at the end of the day, as they were settling up the bill, somebody remarked, that lousy fish cost us $2,000. To which Neil said, damn, it's a good thing we didn't catch two. Truthfully, though, the fishing has improved over the years. And these fishing trips, you've got to have a certain men's club mentality to understand these fishing trips. On a recent one, the fishing was pretty good. They were reeling them in at a pretty good clip. So much so that Smitty turned to Neil and said, the fishing's so good today, why don't we come back to the same exact spot tomorrow? Neil said, it's a great idea. The next thing you know, Smitty's on his knees, making a big X on the bottom of the boat. Neil sees this and says, what the hell are you doing? Smitty says, I'm marking the spot so we'll know where to fish tomorrow. Neil says, how do you know we're going to get the same boat? Neil, I'll close with a story that was just related to me this evening. And many of your neighbors know this story, but it's the first I've heard of it was tonight. Those of you that live on Spreading Oaks may know that the mailman recently retired. And I think that this story kind of relates to Bonnie and Neil and their graciousness and Neil's sense of economics and some of the other things we talked about tonight. Anyway, the story goes that it was the mailman's last day. And Bonnie really wanted to do something special. So she's waiting for the mailman as he approaches the house on the last day. And she invites him in. Says, I understand this is your last day. I have a surprise for you. So the mailman, looking very curious, walks in the house. And Bonnie makes passionate love to him. And when they're done, she says, I have another surprise for you. Come to the kitchen. And in the kitchen is the most magnificent breakfast spread you've ever seen. Everything. Just typical of Bonnie and her being a great hostess. It is marvelous. The mailman eats this wonderful breakfast. As he's finishing, she says, I have one more surprise for you. Look underneath the plate. She picks up the plate, and taped underneath the plate is a dollar bill. Well, the mailman's finally had enough. He says, listen, lady, I've been delivering your mail. You never say a word to me. It's my last day. You invite me into the house. You make love to me. I get this unbelievable breakfast. And then you give me a dollar bill. What's the story? She said, well, when I heard it was your last day, I went to my husband, Neil, and I said, we've got to do something nice for the mailman. It's his last day. Neil says, screw the mailman. Give him a dollar. She said, the breakfast was my idea. Neil, thanks for everything you've done. We appreciate it.
You know, at one of the men's club football get-togethers, which they have very many of, this one was held at the Mandarin Ale House. And everyone knows what a big Jaguar fan Neil is. And this particular game was a Jaguar-Steelers game, which, you know, it's an intense rivalry. So Neil goes into the bar, they watch the game, and it's halftime, and Neil sees one of his Gentile friends sitting over at the bar, Brian the Gentile. So Neil goes over there and he says, I'm going to go say hi to Brian the Gentile. So he goes over there and he says, hey, Brian, I got a really nasty Steeler joke for you. And Brian goes, Neil, just hang on a second. He says, I want to introduce you to my buddies who were like sitting right next to him, hanging on to him. He said, first I want to introduce you to Butch, who is, 6'2", 200 pounds. He says, next to him is Leroy, 6'4", 260, and finally next to him is Bubba, 6'6" and 300 pounds. They're all wearing Steeler jerseys, and he says, do you still want to tell the joke? And of course Neil said, no, I don't want to have to explain it to him 3 times. Anyway, next I want to call on Smitty. Smitty, come up and share your thoughts and good wishes for Neil.
Neil, we're all honored to be here to honor you and to reminisce about a few things that have happened in the past, most of which are true. Several years ago, we arrived in town here, and Neil and I, being the social readers that they have been in the past, Neil invited me to join him and go fishing one day with his father and his son. And we went out on his boat on Juleston Creek. I've been fishing for many, many years, and my idea of going out fishing is to catch a lot of fish. I know it's a rare, and it's an anomaly. It's something that I thought was the normal thing to do. It's back where I came from. Not that time we did. Well, we're out there, and I've not been to Florida fishing, so I didn't know what the rules were here. And we launched the boat into Juleston Creek, and first thing I noticed is this water is not clear lake water like I'm used to seeing. Which he said, oh, that's no problem. The fish are fine. Catch anything, no problem at all. And then we start trolling out there and put the line in the water. And I realized that he's got these large hooks for small fish and putting small worms on them. Well, the whole day we caught absolutely nothing. Didn't even get a nibble. Didn't use the bait. So, in remembrance of that, I decided to help Neil out. So when he does go fishing again, on the Minnesota fishing trip, he's more than welcome to bring us along. I decided to give Neil a real fishing boat. So just to make sure that in the future, when Neil wants to go fishing, he can and have a nice rod. And I got him the largest hook I could find to guarantee that he will never, ever catch it.
Another story about Neil. I called Neil's good friend and my good friend, Maury Oster. And Maury told me about the night he went with Neil to Sneakers Sports Bar to watch a Monday Night Football game. And Maury and Neil go up to the bar, they're watching it on the TV over the bar, they're pounding them down. Beers and having a good time. Neil's trying to keep up with Maury, which is very hard to do. They're all sitting up at the bar, and as it might happen, sitting next to Maury was a guy from Italy, and sitting next to him was a guy from France. So you got, Maury, Neil, an Italian, and a Frenchman. So during one of the commercials, Maury happens to overhear the Italian talk about the passionate love that he made to his wife last night, the night before. And Maury kind of says, hey, Neil, listen to this. And you could hear the Italian say, last night he made passionate love to his wife. He spread olive oil all over her body. Made love, and then she screamed like a banshee for 5 minutes. And Neil is like inching closer, wants to hear this. Yeah, you're getting there. So then they're listening, and then the Frenchman chimed in, and they're listening. The Frenchman said, ooh la la, last night I made a passionate love to my wife. I spread butter all over her body. And after which she screamed, and we made passionate love, and she screamed for 30 minutes. And Neil is sweating. He just can't believe what he's hearing. Maury is shocked because Neil just jumps in and says, hey, guys, let me just tell you something. Last night I made love to my wife. I took some schmaltz. I sweated all over her. We made love, and she screamed for 4 hours. Ooh la, what is this schmaltz? We have to fight them. They're going off saying, oh, they can't believe it. Maury, of course, leans over and he says, hey man, how'd you get this out of her for 4 hours? And Neil said, I wiped my hands with the drapes.
Thank you, Michael. You notice Michael said comments. He didn't say humor, he didn't say jokes, and he knows his brother, and there's a very good reason for that. I'm an accountant. I'm not funny, okay? So relax, you're not going to have to laugh. You can wait until Michael gets back up here. Besides that, Neil's a terrific guy, and as was said earlier, he's just such a wonderful guy that I don't have any funny jokes about Neil. Bonnie, on the other hand, no, not really funny. Just two secrets about Bonnie that maybe some people here don't realize. Number one is, as you all know, Bonnie was awarded one of the center's highest honors this year for Acious Kyle, which she was very deserving of. But I know many of you may think that she was awarded that honor because of all the wonderful work she did in sisterhood and all the dedication and all of the successes that she had. But that's not the real reason that she won the award. The secret is, the real reason she won the award was that for 2 years, she was the life of the center board meetings. Those of you on the center board can explain to those others at the table that, the center board meetings are very, very boring affairs. And they really are. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. All through the center board meeting, though, all of us would wait and anticipate the sisterhood report that Bonnie would give. The beauty, the sensitivity, the spontaneity that came from these reports just kept us sitting at the edge of our seat. So now your secret's out, Bonnie. That's really why you won the award. And I have one other secret, and Bonnie may be mad at me for telling this secret, if so, I apologize. But this secret is, Bonnie was at the doctor's last week, and she hadn't been, she was feeling under the weather, and she got a big surprise. The doctor told her that she's pregnant. And congratulations, Anyway, she was all choked up. She could hardly speak, and so obviously the first when she called was Neil, and just all choked up. She says, "Oh, honey, darling, you're not going to believe this. I'm pregnant." To which Neil said, "Who is this?" Anyway, Neil, you're a wonderful, warm, truly a good person. You've given yourself to the center, your time, your ideas, your energy, the men's club, the center, your community. On behalf of the officers and the board, we're very proud to be your friend, and we're very proud that you're Man of the Year. Congratulations.
Let's have a beer. Bonnie told me this really cute story about the first time that Neil brought home a dog for the kids. I mean, it was so cute. You know, and they bring the dog home. Neil brings the dog home, and he couldn't wait to show the dog to his friend George. You know, he called George, George, you there? George, this is a great story. He calls George, he says, George, you gotta come over and see our new dog, Tevye. He is so cute. This is the smartest dog in the world. So George is like, you know, gets on his bike and he pedals over, and he can't wait to see this smart dog, Tevye. George gets there and he says, okay, you know, I'm here, show me the dog. You know, and Neil says, watch this. You know, he says, you know, Tevye, come here. You know, the dog comes, of course. It's incredible. The dog is just standing there looking at George. The tail is wagging furiously. The dog has this beautiful, just incredible doggy smile as he looks up at George. And the dog is just an incredibly beautiful dog. And so Neil says, all right, watch this. He goes, see the newspaper on the sofa? Fetch! Immediately, the dog stops. The tail stops wagging. That incredible doggy smile is gone. The dog looks up balefully at Neil and speaks and says, oi, my tail hurts from wagging so much. The dog food you feed me is crap. I can't stand it. I can't remember the last time that I was walked. And George is very unimpressed. Says, what is this? A stupid dog. And Neil says, no. He thought I said fetch. Anyway, let's go to Rabbi Kentoff. You ready?
I didn't prepare any kind of funny remarks, funny jokes. I just wanted to remember with all of you and bring to your attention what a kind of a nice mensch this guy is. You know that in the center, we're dealing with many programs, especially programs for kids. And there were numerous times that I had to call Neil sometimes twice a week and to say, Neil, I need some fruit and vegetables. And whenever I said the word, Neil said, don't worry, the stuff is going to be in the refrigerator for you. And so on behalf of all the children, I'm going to present Neil the most coveted award of our junior congregation, the junior congregation trophy for Neil Center for being such a mensch and a nice guy. All the kids will take care.
Before I call on Cantor Heller, I have a very short little, this was so cute. The Cantor told me this story several weeks ago. It was on Rosh Hashanah when Cantor Heller took a break from services and he went out, maybe it was to take a little fish, I don't know, but he was walking outside at the foyer and he notices Neil's daughter Laura, and I think it's Bonnie's daughter too, Lori. It says Lori. I didn't know it was your daughter too, I did. You know, standing in front of the memorial plaques, which are in the foyer, and just kind of staring at him. So the Cantor goes in to do his little business there, and he comes out, and he notices Lori still staring at the plaques. So the Cantor is such a good-hearted mensch, walks up to her as she's staring at the memorial plaques, and he says, good yontif, Lori. And she doesn't really turn away, but she knows. She's very smart. She says, good yontif, Cantor. And, they kind of stand there and look together for a minute. And then the Cantor says, what are you doing? She says, well, Cantor, I noticed that next to right to the left of some of the plaques are little American flags. And I'm just wondering what these are for. So the cantor just very kindly says, Lori, these American flags are next to people that died in the service. So Lori continues to look and gets a very contemplative look on her face, and then she whispers, Cantor, which service shops are you? Or whose side? Anyway, Cantor, come join us.
I'm in deep trouble here. And why I'm in so much trouble here, which I'll try and rectify just now, is when I was asked to say a few words, you know, Cantor says a few words, you know, he talks about the Reshid, and he talks about the creation, he talks about light and darkness, and all of a sudden, and this is what's written here, in seriousness, this was going to be about Torah at the end of the day. I'm not quite sure I'm going to deliver it right now. But we talk about light and darkness, you know, and all these stories coming out, and then about Bonnie and about Neil, and then about thinking, lights on, lights off. I don't know what they're talking about anymore. You know, it's sort of very much in conflict with what I'm saying right now. The important part of what I've got over here, and I'm trying to take out what's going to be meaningful, when God created the world, the first thing He did say is Vayehi Or. So if it's the lights on, it's okay, it comes from the Torah. But really thinking about all the other comments that came out over here, before I finalize and give you the toasting part of it, I think it behoves upon me as the religious professional of the congregation to just sing a little song and basically reflect from what I've heard over here. And it goes something like this. Ay, 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 well, Neil, I'll skip 5 paragraphs right now. Come on. Okay, in the short time that I've known you, you possess a light, a radiance, okay? That radiates brightly to all of us. You shine positivity, sensitivity, friendliness, and most of all, an inner strength. As I wish you mazel tov on your walk tonight, I offer a prayer that God's light will shine upon you and your wonderful family and provide you all with wonderful years of happiness and joy.
You know, after Paul was born, Neil, after Paul was born, Neil left, of course, like all men do. He left Bonnie at the hospital and went out to celebrate. He went out to party with his friends. So he goes out with the men, and they're in the bar, and everybody says, "Hey, Neil, it's great, Paul, talk about, you know, how big is he?" And Neil says, Paul is 15 pounds, 7 ounces. And they're all, mazel tov, this is wonderful. And they party, and that's it. About 2 weeks later, he's at another men's club function with different people, and they're all like, "Hey, mazel tov, that's wonderful. Neil, how's Paul doing?" And Neil goes, "Oh, he's doing great. He's 7 pounds, 3 ounces. And one of his other friends said, "Neil, I thought Paul was 15 pounds, 7 ounces. And Neil says, "That was before the breast." George, are you ready? Now, come on up. Come on up.
Well, I like this line. Don't like this one, Neil. I couldn't, it's hard to roast this man. This man when he wants my Havarah, well, I want his Havarah anyway.
And when he became Income's president, I know about it because he used to call me, George, I need this done, I need that done. Could you come and do this? And George never refused. I never refused. That's what he told me. But the truth of it is I watched them, they're beautiful kids grow up, and they're not grown yet, I know, but you're not. And I came and I decided, I'm not going to roast you, because you're too nice a guy. I really love you. You're a great friend.
Thank you, George. That was very nice. You know, before I call on our current men's club president, I have to tell y'all something a little bit about men's club. For those of you that don't, come and participate very often, men's club is a very private, close-knit, secretive fraternity. It really is. I mean, members, we do everything to protect each other from outsiders as well as protecting each other from ourselves. And that's very important. And I remember when I first joined the men's club, I'll never forget there was a doctor, not necessarily a podiatrist, but it was a doctor that had a problem. I mean, a very serious problem. He was married, he had kids, but he accidentally knocked up one of his nurses, okay? So what the doctor did was, of course, like anyone did back then who had a problem, they went to Neil. Because Neil's advice and guidance was always sought after. So they go to Neil with the problem, and Neil, in his Solomon-like manner, dispensed wisdom. Neil said, all right, here's what you do. You send her to Europe and you pay her off. So sure enough, they said, yeah, of course, why didn't I think of that? So off she goes to Europe, the doctor paid her, poof, she's gone. And of course, Neil said, now you gotta remember that after the baby's born, you're gonna have to pay her off again, so you need a code. What? A code? The doctor said, doctors are very slow. She said, yeah, you have her send a postcard back, and write a little code on the back like spaghetti. That way you'll know when the baby's born, you can send her the other check. Fine. Nurse agreed, they're gone, everybody's happy, 6 months later, all of a sudden the doctor's wife calls Neil. They're very close friends. Very, very, you're close, aren't you with Neil still? Okay. But anyway, they're very, very close. So the doctor's wife, wait, they won't know who it is. It's a big place. So the doctor's wife calls Neil up and she's frantic. She said, Neil, my husband just read a postcard, passed out on the floor. Neil's very calm. He said, well, read me the postcard. And she reads the postcard and she reads spaghetti, 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 spaghetti. 2 with sausage and meatballs and 2 without. Dave, it's your turn, bud.
Spaghetti. Spaghetti. Sausage and meatball. Neil wanted to know, by the way, Ellen, where's the zucchini? The cucumbers? We see the potatoes and the onions and the radishes. But where are the cucumbers? Okay. Neil, I have a confession to make. I'm really at a disadvantage here because even though I've known you for a few years, I certainly don't have the close confidence that your friends here have with you, knowing you so many years more than that. So I started out on a journey to learn about Neil Sandler, who he was, what were his hobbies and allegiances and loves, etc. And of course, you've heard many of them over the course of the evening so far. Okay, my first step was to ask the members of the Man of the Year committee about you.
And those committee members are here, right? Larry, Shirley, and you wouldn't believe what they told me, Neil. I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. Okay? They said that I'm going to have a roast with you, but it's going to have to be adults only. And I said, a roast? And that's adults only? Why? Neil is so sweet and thoughtful. So helpful and committed. So willing to do whatever it takes to help further the cause of the Center of the Men's Club. Surely, it would be really hard to find anyone that would want to roast such a good man, let alone in terms that should be limited to an adults-only event. Boy, was I wrong. Apparently, Neil, your interest in a certain genre of classic cinema is legendary. Your collection apparently is quite substantial, and your love of this particular genre has been described as passionate. I have learned that your knowledge of the ins and outs, and ins and outs, and ins and outs of the industry is unmatched. But I also learned, Neil, that your reputation as a connoisseur in the industry is far-reaching, and I was able to find out that some of the stars that you have enjoyed on the screen know of you, Neil. As a matter of fact, some owe their success at the box office directly to your long upstanding and strong commitment to the growth of your collection. When I sent letters out to solicit tributes for you, I received some of the following replies. This letter was postmarked Dallas. Yeah. Dear Neil, I was on the set of my latest production when I heard the news. I was so excited I dropped to my knees and gave thanks. Congratulations on your award. Love, Debbie. This one was from New York. Dear Neil, Linda asked me to hustle this response off to you right away. She is really happy for you and wants you to know that you shouldn't worry about her. She keeps busy by helping singers deep throat. Excuse me, that's reach deep in the throat for the best sound. Linda also practices with her animal husbands. Oops, I mean that's practices animal husbandry. Anyway, best of luck. With really warm regards, Larry F. And lastly, this one is from Lady Annabelle D. Sprinkles. You know Lady Annabelle D. Sprinkles? Okay. Dear Neil, what a surprise. You, Man of the Year. My, what an honor. I am no longer in the business, and as a matter of fact, I serve a different calling. As we speak, I am in New Guinea practicing my missionary positions. No, I'm sorry, that should be I am a practicing missionary. Okay. Oh, well, I never was much of a cunning linguist. Here's to you, big boy. Well handled. Neil, I probably learned more about you than I should have, but it doesn't change the fact that you are a truly special mention deserving of the honor you are receiving tonight.
Thank you, David. I have to reflect on the first time that I received my Oscar library card, to be able to go over to their house and check out those movies, and it was awesome. It was good. Anyway, I guess the Oscar is mine for the Library of Congress. Anyway, before I call on Bonnie, I have to tell everyone that, this evening was the first time that I chatted with Neil's father. And, Mr. Sandler is a very colorful, you're a funny guy. You really are. And your wife, she's a funny guy too. That's okay. But, the greatest was when he and I started talking about Viagra. He told me about the time that he went to Walgreens with a prescription for 4 Viagra cut into quarters. And I said, you really did? How did you get these guys? Yeah, I went to Walgreens, gave the pharmacist a prescription. He looked at me because I'm there all the time, and he said, Mr. Sandler, this prescription for 4 Viagra cut into quarters, it's not going to do you any good. And he says, no, this is not for sex. Come on, I'm a sailor, I got all the sex I need. And he says, this is so that my schmeckle sticks out so far that I won't piss on my shoes. Anyway, Bonnie, let's hear what you have to say about your
First, I have a short message from your nieces in New Jersey, Emily and Erica, fleeing Gary's girls. From the shores of New Jersey to Jacksonville Beach, according to us, you're the #1 peach. You may tease us, but we know it's all in fun. As an uncle, you're the top banana when all is said and done. Love, Emily and Erica. Neil, we have been married for over 27 years, and we dated for nearly 5 years before we were married. In this room, I have many witnesses to the fact that you have teased me the entire time. Everyone is aware that you are always teasing our 3 children and anyone else who crosses your path. But don't worry, because I strongly believe that 2 wrongs don't make a right. So although I truly have some good stories I could tell, I won't be too hard on you this evening. As our family and friends assembled here tonight will attest, I am too sweet and sensitive to do that. Neil, it is truly ironic that it was under your administration as men's club president that fishing became part of the men's club. First, you organized a family fishing trip to the dock at River Garden. It was a wonderful idea. Because it involved all of our children and the residents of River Garden. You turned a family activity into a mitzvah. Then there's the annual men's club deep sea fishing trip. You have always been an active supporter of that activity as well. The reason that this is so ironic is that Neil, as hard as you try, just cannot fish. Time after time, fishing trip after fishing trip, you come back empty-handed. Now, this is not to say that you are not just fishing in the right spot. What makes this an even stranger phenomenon is that everyone else around you is catching fish. For some reason, everyone gets bites but you. Although I can think of several stories along these lines, the most striking one happened about 7 years ago in North Carolina. We were visiting Wendy and Alan Kane, and they thought it would be fun for both families to go to a well-stocked trout pond. Neil, the pond, as you remember, was loaded with trout. The water was very clear and shallow. Neil, we could all see hundreds of fish. It looked as if you would be able to walk underwater because it was so thick with fish. Everyone in our group, and everyone else around us, was reeling in fish left and right. Well, almost everyone. Even in that situation, Neil, you could not catch a fish. Well, honey, perhaps one day your fishing skills will improve. And in all honesty, I guess I cannot say that you have never caught a fish. Your parents have told me a story of a time many years ago when you did catch a fish. The tale they tell is of a fish that their little boy caught. A fish that they then cooked and fed the entire family with. Well, it is said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I just happen to have a picture of the one fish. Picture of the big one that did not get away. Neil, to close on a more serious note, I want to say how proud I am of you tonight, and how happy I am that no one in our home likes to eat fish. Sincerely, you are truly deserving of the title of Man of the Year. Honey, you have been my Man of the Year every day since I met you. I love you very much.
All right, what we're going to do now is we've given people an opportunity to pay $5 for 1 minute at Neil. You can tell any story you want. People have been whispering stories to me all night, like the one about Neil pissing in the center pool. And they went up to Neil and they said, Neil, you shouldn't be pissing in the center pool. And Neil says, everybody pisses in the center pool. And then they said, yeah, but not from the high dive, Neil. Cut it out. Cut it out. So anyway, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to go down the list of people that have already paid, and if anybody else here wants to jump in with a great story about Neil, just, wave your arm. I've got change, it's $5. Anybody wants to tell a quick story? You got 1 minute. I'm going to be standing right next to you, and I'll just, bowl with something to let you know it's time. Larry, you want to go first? Come on up. I mean, I've got some cord here, but not very long. And now let's see, who's after Larry? Fred and Cheryl, you're next. Just let me know who's going to do the talk.
There you go. Neil, Mondays are like, my Mondays like probably everybody else's. They're just extremely hectic around the office, and I wanted to think of something really wonderful to say. But, I had to make some money today, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. But about 5 minutes to 6, and I figured, well, I better get to go over here and help a little bit. I started to sit down and write, but I got a call from supposedly this guy from the largest mortgage company in America, and he wanted me to perform 150 closings a month over the next 10 years. And I thought for a minute, I got on the phone with him, I said, I'm sorry, sir, but I've got to write something for Neil. And he hung up, so this is what I wrote. This isn't funny. Neil Sandler, a man for all seasons. We toast and roast him tonight for many reasons. An original organizer of high rating, his energy is and was boundless, or so it would seem. Up before dawn to go gulp produce he would go, to make sure the fruits and veggies were delivered just so. Safety for toddlers became his next shtick. Successful businesses he could always pick. A regular on the men's club fishing trips, the day is never as much fun without Neil's constant quips. Scott, Lori, and Paulie are proud of their dad, as are the parents of this fine New York lad. Bonnie we can always see smiling from ear to ear, a wife, mother, and soulmate, to her husband so dear. So tonight we roast and toast you, Neil Sandler of New York, as we break open the bottles and pop the corks. We raise all our voices in good spirit and cheer, and honor you as the Center Men's Club Man of the Year.
First up, there's many stories, all of them funny, that we can tell about Neil and Bonnie. And first of all, I'm sure all of you have a funny story, typically related to the first time you ever met Bonnie and Neil. Most often, that story is one of the funniest you have about Bonnie and Neil. So first, let me tell you about the first time we had them over for dinner. We had just met. We had moved to Jacksonville a few months ago. We were invited to Scotty's second birthday, and we were reciprocating having Bonnie and Neil over for dinner. We had a fine dinner. We had a nice conversation. We were just getting to know each other. 8 o'clock, it's getting kind of late. Dinner's over. Neil promptly stretches out on our living room floor and goes to sleep. Fast asleep, 5 minutes. Fast asleep, going. Bonnie, is there something we should know? Is he okay? Yeah, well, we thought so, but we've been friends ever since anyway. But sure enough, he had to be up in 4 hours, so he said he needed his night's sleep. So 8 o'clock at night, he's fast asleep, not on our couch, but passed out on the floor. And that's the truth. And it was funny to us at the time, it became funny later on. Yeah, you did. You really did. I have a story that I want to read on behalf of one of Neil's oldest friends who, despite the weather, could not be here tonight. Matt Frank. He was supposed to have come tonight, but he's been working 24 hours a day down in Miami area doing emergency relief because he works for civil defense down there, and the hurricane caught him short. So I wanted to relate one story that he sent out to us. It was Yom Kippur, and the service was long. Sue and Bonnie had left the service early to fix the break fast, as they always did. That left Neil and Matt to pray for the sins of the two families. About 4 o'clock, Matt and Neil felt that enough sins had been covered, so they decided to leave. This is when the center was at 3rd and Silver, so they took the Hartbridge home to avoid the traffic. Well, as luck would have it, they passed Long John Silver's. Well, fish was kosher. They stopped and got their fingers greasy from a free fish and chips, washed up and drove home to break the fast. Upon arrival, Bonnie wanted to start the break fast. Neil said, no, we really need to wait until sunset. He insisted. Matt backed him up, of course. So the dinner was eaten at the crack of sundown. It wasn't until well after dinner that guilt finally caught up with Neil and he fessed up. Neil is famous for keeping a secret. If he had been in counterintelligence during World War II, it would have made Neil get captured to leak the wrong information on D-Day. About 2 weeks later, our wives started to talk to us again. And that is a true story.
Right, thank you, that was great. Next, Stan or Nancy, who's coming? Stan. All right, here, can we come to you? Here we go. There we go. All right.
Neil, I'm reminded of the time you called to me for lunch. We could not decide where to go, and you suggested that we ought to go to Wacko's. Since I had not been there, it sounded like a great place. We had fun, we had lots of laughs, although I really don't remember what I ate. The scenery was terrific, and so were the girls. Neil, you are truly one of a kind and a very special friend. You have always been ready to lend a helping hand or just listen. Thanks for being you, our friend. We are truly grateful for this friendship.
Leah, how about now? I walk around. Oh, Neil, hi. Oh. All right.
Well, I don't know if they use the same tactics to get you here like they got me here, but I'd like to complain right now because they said they were going to have a roast for Adam Sandler. So I'm going to complain. They said the master of ceremonies was Harry Shorstein. Is on the news all the time, and a fraternity brother. And then they said they're going to have the oratoric given by running back Don Gaffney. But he's at watching the baseball game, so Don Gaffney couldn't make it there. And then I heard it's going to be catered by Margot Hemingway. And then they said there's going to be roast. I thought it was going to be like a dinner, a banquet. They said I thought it was going to be roast beef and a roast lamb. It was just a roast of Sandler. And then also, I've really enjoyed myself, and as a testimony to Neil that there's so many people here, and I want to say Adam Sandler, wherever you are here, I know he's here somewhere, but yeah, love the Hanukkah song, didn't like the recording.
Thank you, Leah. Okay, everybody's getting cake. That's good.
Well, I was also at that meal at Wacko's.
Thank you very much, Eric.
They claim to have the best hamburger in town. You know, so Neil asked George, he said, George, you're kosher, can you eat that? George said, I'll leave off the cheese. I'll save the rest of the story for George's roast. Anyway, I will tell one story about Neil. Everybody that knows Neil knows that he just absolutely goes out of his way for people, and also he knows the value of the dollar, and I'll try to tell one story that'll bring both of those together. One of the first times I met Neil, we were over at his house. It was Sunday afternoon, customer calls up, says he was out of tomatoes, he absolutely had to have tomatoes. And turns out that this was a chain that Neil sold to. This particular restaurant didn't even buy from Neil, but it was part of the chain. And Neil felt bad, and he decided that he'd deliver some tomatoes. We got in the van, we go to the warehouse, pick up a couple cases of tomatoes. Turns out this place is all the way up in Yulee. We're out in the middle of nowhere. We delivered the tomatoes, and the manager of the restaurant didn't know Neil from Adam. He didn't know he was the owner. He felt sorry for him that he had to go all the way up here for the day to deliver the tomatoes. We each take in a case. The owner gives us each a silver dollar. That's a tip. So we take the silver dollar, we get back in the van, we start back to Jacksonville. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Neil realizes that we're out of gas. We pull into this gas station, we fill up the van with gas, and we decided that it was still a long ways back. We had a few beers, and maybe we leave ourselves before we continue back to Jacksonville. And we asked the owner of the station where the men's room is, and he laughs at us. He points out to the back of the gas station, and there ain't no men's room there, but there's an outhouse. There's a nice outhouse. There's a double-decker. Two people can go one time in this outhouse. Well, it's not a double-decker. So anyway, Neil goes into one stall, I go into the other. Neil does his business. He starts to pick up his pants, and the dollar rolls into the hole. Neil says, "Oh shit." Pulls out a $20 bill, throws it down the hole. I said, "Neil, what the hell are you doing?" He said, "You don't think I can go down here for $1, do you?"
Thank you, very nice. Uncle Jules, which is I, Uncle Jules. All right, you ready?
Yes, I'm Uncle Jules, and had I known my nephew was into pornography, I would have bought him a pornograph.
What's the pornograph?
Reading from Florida South. I'm not really here, just my mouth. To toast my nephew Neil and enjoy this $25 hot dog meal. Let me tell you about days gone by. They went so fast I want to cry. Neil was born very young. At his wrist, we saw he was quite well hung. I remember during it, he sprung a leak. He was so stunned about it all, he didn't speak for almost 2 years. Then came his bar mitzvah, and it was and his beautiful Haftorah. We all had such a good time, we danced the horror. Then came his wedding so classy, that's where he married his Bonnie lassie. Then in time came kids 3, a perfect family, it seems to me. To support them all, off the work to keep go, to go produce with his fathers Jack and Joe. A last time came for him to retire, and what should we do, you might inquire. I suggest we take up a collection for Neil, because he's not working now and too nervous to steal. And now, from this branch of your family tree, the Lockvilles wish you the best you can be. Health, happiness, long life, l'chaim.
Thank you, Uncle Jules. Maureen and Kathy, who's doing it? Of course, Kathy's doing it. I mean, how would I even think? Kathy! Hey, do it. Do it.
All right, all right. Well, Neil, I'm very honored, and I'm very honored to be here tonight, but I'm mostly amazed that this is lasting as long as it is, because from what I hear, and I hear it often, you usually don't last very long at all. altogether. But don't you think it's time to return all those tapes before I personally revoke your Oscar election library? I'm also insulted that you haven't given enough due, because you know that you can learn it all down by us. But mostly, Neil, I want to say you're a terrific guy. We love you. You're wonderful, and you really do need to return those tapes soon.
Thank you, Kathy. Bill, you're up.
Well, I'm up because they wouldn't give me my $5 back. I realized two things. One was that I didn't know you very well at all. And the second thing was that I didn't know you very well enough to tell you what I really thought of you. However, I did want to say this. As one boy from Brooklyn to another boy from Brooklyn, you can take the boy out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the boy. And I'd like to add to that, but based on what I know and what I've seen, we need more boys from Brooklyn, like you.
Thank you, Bill. We appreciate it. Jerry, ready?
I first met Neil about 15 years ago. We moved down here from New York.
I was short of it.
You were short of it. I was short of it. And then Fred Love had me over the house with Charlotte, and there was Neil. I didn't Anyway, Neil was there, and just was introduced to him. We're talking and talking. All of a sudden, he's talking about sex and how much he loves sex, and about the tapes that he has. Words, how he was in the tapes. Anyway. So after the night, I said, Fred, you know, two friends are real sex men, you know. I said, does he have sex as often as he talks about it? He said, well, did you ever meet Bonnie? I said, no. So anyway, a week later, I meet Bonnie and looked at her face, and I thought, now there's a man who has lots of sex. But anyway, also that same night, Neil was asking all kinds of questions. Want to know about me, want to know about my wife, Marlene, the kids, where we lived, what our background was. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy really was a man, wasn't know our time. But as it turned out over the years, we learned that Neil really has a true appreciation for friends and really wanted to know about me as an individual and the family. And as such, we really have grown to love Neil and the family, and we just wish you nothing but the best of luck, and can see why you've been the man of the year. So we love you, Neil.
I didn't know you guys were swingers. Let's say it now. If anybody wants to swing with Neil and Bonnie,
Hang
on, Viagra Man. Hold on. Viagra Man's next. Who's up? Who's going to do the talking? All right. Here we go.
Before I give my 50-second speech, I want to thank all of you for being here for Neil. Dearest Neil, receiving the Jacksonville Tourist Center Award for Man of the Year instills pride in our heart that only the other mothers and fathers in the audience can fully appreciate. Nothing dirty here. Neil has led his life in a textbook manner, always willing to go out of his way to help others. He has the unique ability to break up a tense moment with a joke. Granted, it will often be a dirty joke that he would tease and say his granny told it to him. No one would blame him if he had spent most of his time pondering his own woes, but he maintains his positive outlook on life. Although some are just recognizing him today as Man of the Year, we have always regarded him as our man of a lifetime. It is to these achievements we dedicate this toast with all our love and pride. Thank you.
Last chance. Any hands? Anybody with a funny story about Neil? Going, oh, I see bananas. bell. Ba-da-la-ba-da-la. Come on up. Come on up. Thank you, thank you. Ba-da-la-ba-da.
Well, I had the distinct pleasure of following the moving van that brought Neil and Bonnie to Jacksonville. And I will say that it was a wonderful moment. And from that time, we've been friends and enjoyed many Simcas together. But I must say, there's one event that I will never forget, and that was the Miss Jacksonville contest that we had here at the center when we first moved into this building from Third and Silver. And Neil was absolutely gorgeous. Matt Frankel, I had seen films of that dressing room. It was terrific. And Jack Silverman is here, and he was another babe. It was just so funny. But that was the last time we ever did that, but it sure was a lot of fun. Many fond memories.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, sure. All right.
Okay, Neil, as one of your oldest friends. Oh, and university.
Susan, it's all right.
I can trust you, you're a lawyer. 26 years ago, when we first moved to Jacksonville, Matt and I met Bonnie, and she was so sweet. I thought, she must have such a lovely husband. Well, we went out to dinner for the very first time. I met Neil for the very first time, and I said, Bonnie, there's another couple joining us. She didn't convert. She's Christian. He's Jewish. They're a little self-conscious about the whole thing, so maybe, Neil, don't say anything. Wrong thing to say. It's done. Neil walks up and he says, hey, Linda, I hear you're the Southern Baptist married to the Jew. They didn't think it was funny. Okay, number 2. Let's see, Neil. I don't know if you know this, but before Neil was in the produce business, he used to work for Billy the Kid. Well, Matt was on the road, and Neil was on the road. Matt worked for Legs Products. So the standard joke at that time was that Matt was into stockings, and Neil was into little boys' pants. Neil, do you remember Thanksgiving at my house? Okay. Let me refresh your memory. I have 2 sisters, and we're not all very small, Neil. You were in the kitchen with... Yeah. You were in the kitchen with my father for the very first time, eating him for Thanksgiving. We told him what a wonderful couple you and Bonnie were. We're in the kitchen, and Neil walks in, and excuse my language, Neil says, how can I get in the kitchen with all these tits and asses in here? Right. My father didn't speak to you for 3 years. I had to finally convince him that you were really a very nice guy and that we really loved Bonnie a lot. And the last thing, Neil, even though there's lots more. You think he was so nice that he was starting the men's club. He thought it was a topless bar.
Cheryl, come on up. All right, we've got 2 more. We have Cheryl, and then we have a special guest, and then we're going to go to the awards presentation.
All right, this is a story sent in by Matt Frankel. This puts together their love. A fish story with a sex story. 2 themes of the night. This is written by Matt Frankel. I had just bought my new 33-foot sailboat, and soon I took Neil and Bonnie on a sunset cruise. We left the dock at 5. The sun was just starting to go down. I instructed Neil and Bonnie to try out the new V-berth. 20 minutes as we were going under the Buckman Bridge, Sue and I started hearing the horns from the cars on the bridge. It seemed a little noisier than normal. A lot of cars were honking. And it wasn't until Neil and Bonnie came back to the cockpit that I realized I had left the forward hatch open, exposing the V-berth to everyone directly overhead. They even caused a major backup on the bridge, and And that night they used to justify building 4 more lanes on the Buckman Bridge.
All right, we have 2 more. We have a special guest, and then we're going to go back to Dr. F.
You're not. You're next to us. You ready? You're up.
Friends, what happened to you, the color? Tomorrow you will not have to wash your mouth with soap. Shame on you.
That was awesome. Gary, you ready? You want to come in? I'll meet you halfway. I don't think my thing's long enough to, here we go. Yeah, no, it's long. I heard it was long.
All right. I don't really have prepared remarks because we were just thinking about things, but everything I'm going to say, Neil, is from Wendy and I's heart. And everybody talked about your sexual exploits, and I really don't want to dwell on that. I thought about the first time we went to St. Martin together, and you shared a room with Andy and I, and we had a kind of a fabric partition between us, and how we just couldn't fall asleep that night with Bonnie howling. Then I thought about the time that Matt, you and myself went down to this old Swisher estate in Picolata right after we moved to town. And we all had this grand idea that we were going to have this vacation retreat for the 3 families. And Matt and I are looking around and we're just amazed at the size of the house. And Matt says, hey, look at that balcony. And Neil was up on the balcony with a schwank out. We still can't figure you out. Then we thought about the second time we went to St. Martin. And this was after you decided to buy a timeshare. And I talked you into it and it cost me $7,000. Right. And we went to this island, and Bonnie was pregnant with Paul. And this shipload of new French tourists came over. And you started talking French to see if you could become part of the crew. But I don't want to talk about your sexual exploits. When we first moved to town 21 years ago, you came over, you babysat for us. You always came over on Sunday morning, had breakfast with us. When we moved to Spreading Oaks, you followed us. When the garage door would be open, you made yourself at home. And after all the years we know you, our house is your house. And we love you both.
Thank you, Gary. We appreciate that. Now I'd like to call on the current president of the Men's Club for our award presentation this evening. David?
What award? So what is it? What are you giving me? All right, Neil. Before I give Neil his award, and I'm going to make him wait, and wait, and wait. I would like to thank a few of the people who made this evening possible. I'd like to start with the Man of the Year Planning Committee. I'd like to introduce those folks to you. If you'd stand up so everybody can give you a round of applause. Larry Bernard way in the back. Cheryl Bielski. Mike Perry. Bill Levine. Fred Malone. And of course, Ellen and George Rubens. And a big, big, big round of applause for Ellen and all the wonderful decorations that you see around you. And of course, the trusty assistant George helped out on that as well. And of course, a round of applause to Lori and the center kitchen staff for the wonderful steak and potatoes we had tonight. Okay. Neil, we've had a great time picking on you tonight. You've been a great sport through it all, and of course, you will have an opportunity to respond in a moment. But first,
Not a new car.
Yeah, new car. This plaque is going to be hung in a prominent place in the center, and I'm proud to say that Neil's name is going to be the first name on this Man of the Year plaque for the next dozen years or so. Okay, so this is Neil, on behalf of the officers and board of the JJC Men's Club, it is my distinct honor and great pleasure to give you this award as our first Men's Club Man of the Year, an honor originally reserved. Read the glass. It says, what does that say? Neil Sandler, Man of the Year, 1899. I'm sorry, 1929.
It could be.
Or is that 1959? I don't know, what does that say? 1999, yeah, thank you.
Prepared remarks, but I'm not going to use them. I just want to say thank you very much for being here for me. This city has opened its arms for Bonnie and myself. 28 years ago, I guess, we moved here, not knowing anybody. Little by little, through some wonderful contacts, we got this group to a wonderful, large family, your whole family. We love you. Every one of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Good night.
Okay, just